I'm Kristen Hochstein. I'm here with my colleague Simon Gauld, and today we are excited to take you on a little bit about our journey at LSEG and the exciting work we did with Snowflake. I'll give you a little bit of an introduction before we go into the presentation. I think many of you know London Stock Exchange Group. We're probably known most because in our name is the exchange, but as a company, we actually have a storied history with the exchange going back to the 1700s, and there's a lot of fun stories there. But we also have our post-trade business, in addition to capital markets, our index business, and then data and analytics, which is a tremendous amount of market data, and analytics is the content set. I represent pricing and reference services. And the business and my partner in engineering, we're going to tell you a little bit about how we created our path to Snowflake. So when I talk about our products, before I go into a little bit more of the history, one, because I love food, so I don't know if any foodies in the room, but I like to describe our product set and how we offer it as order off a menu, which is our request and retrieve product, all-you-can-eat buffet, which I just want all that food. And then the final one, in the ready-to-use database category, is cook, make the recipe. And that set gave a lot of our clients options. But the product around our ready-to-use database, in the sense of cook and be able to make all your own food, we started back in 2016 contemplating our path and our journey, because there were reasons, and if you look at what's up on the screen here, why we were saying we had a deployed delivery of that make your own recipe with dated architecture. So we had deployed hardware. We actually had to physically bring it to our clients. Server licensing, it required 2 server licenses, not ideal. The cost impact, there was massive maintenance and cost setup. We also were limited. Because of this deployed nature, we only could go to US and Canada. It was more complicated for us to do a full global footprint. And then the onboarding, 6 months it would take for clients to get on our hardware. And that setup was frustrating, and a lot of our customers at the same time, we thought, well, let's talk to our customers. So we went to our customers because for a moment we paused and we thought, this is a product that a lot of people love, but maybe we should talk to our customers before we think about our next path, which even could have been walking away. And our clients started saying, I love a queryable database. I love that you can join tables. I love this basic stuff, right? To me, this separates you from the rest. The fact that you have this powerful tool. It was some of the largest banks, largest financial institutions, asset managers who were all using this. And the interesting thing is, this was 2016, and if you look, they were starting to be open to cloud delivery. I just got back from South Africa, Singapore, and Australia, and I talked to a lot of customers who are still saying, I might want to be deployed, or I'm not quite ready. And some people are on that path to cloud, but they're questioning security or they're learning. It's amazing to me that in 2016, you started to hear this, well, maybe I'm open, or actually I don't care where the data reside, as long as there's accuracy of the content, or maybe we'd be willing to consider it. So you start to see these comments from our customers, and we realized, wow, they're open to cloud delivery, they love the product. And so what did we do? We started to say, you know what? Rather than the product was Datascope Onsite, rather than seeing that product go away at some point, our clients were also saying to us, get us out of data centers. So at the same time we were looking at this as our next path, we then started investing heavily ourselves in cloud. So our own journey started with leveraging cloud for both greater agility of our pricing and reference content, modernizing our core infrastructures, as well as thinking about our customers and reducing TCO. So how did we get our clients to better manage and maintain their data? We were thinking about that at the same time we were making our products more scalable, more agile. So what we did, and we're going to get into this in a little bit, luckily, my engineering partner's here with me, and he's going to be able to really get into the details. But one of the things that we wanted to do, the product is Datascope Onsite today, and there might be some customers in the room of Datascope Onsite. We initially said Datascope Onsite in cloud. We're like, that's an oxymoron. It was actually our CEO who said, I don't think we want to be saying on-site and cloud. So we launched Datascope Warehouse, and it was our first path on Snowflake. A lot of clients who were on Datascope Onsite were also saying to us, I really want you to be in Snowflake. So it was this perfect moment where we knew they loved the control of the product. They loved the ability to cook in their kitchen. We knew that as a company, we were thinking about that path. It was the perfect time. So if you look at this, this is just instant access to DBORs, which is what this is showing. So in essence, it is all you can eat, but it's also all you can eat as you're making the recipe. So you're getting access to the pantry. These are all the different food items in the pantry, whether we're talking about, our fixed income content, our equity content, our funds, our legal entity, all this data at your fingertips. And so many of our customers who love it, we're giving them optionality. We're not forcing them. For those who want to be currently still deployed, that's going to be a journey. But today, we're giving options. And what's happening is we're already having clients move, clients are excited, and we're able to take it on the road, which is why we've been spending a lot of time across the globe. So there's not that global limitation that we were seeing, and it's pretty exciting. So I'm going to play a quick little video for you all before we get into the fun tech stuff.
Universe of unparalleled pricing and reference data. Introducing Datascope Warehouse. Imagine having immediate access to a universe of unparalleled pricing and reference data. Introducing Datascope Warehouse. LSEG's latest cutting-edge, ready-to-use enterprise data solution natively available through a cloud-based delivery service. Access pricing and reference data for millions of fixed income securities, equities, and other exchange-traded and OTC instruments without the need for complex installations and maintenance. You get access to a database with on-demand querying with greater ease and efficiency. And to support your transformation journey, we provide you with expert, tailored guidance from ideation through to implementation. Search Datascope Warehouse to find out more at Data Universe of Possibilities.
And now we're going to go to our engineering journey. So I'm going to pass it over to Simon.
Thanks, Kristen. Hello, everyone. My name's Simon Gauld. I'm the engineering director for data distribution at London Stock Exchange. So I've been with the company for about 5 years. And before that, I worked in a variety of different roles in telcos and signaling, did a bunch of graphics. And then when the MapReduce paper came out many years ago, I thought it was a good excuse to run a Beowulf cluster and actually have an excuse to buy more Linux boxes. So that's kind of, from there, it just snowballs into data and running through all manner of H2O, cascading, Pig, Hive, Spark, etc. And so 5 years ago, I came to LSEG, and I've done a variety of data engineering for distribution, and now we arrive at the Snowflake requirement. So let's see. So I run a team, it's multi-cloud data distribution, so that's a team of about 30 engineers, and we cover, pick a technology, we do the last mile. So the data engineering of ingest, model, master, the creation and curation of the products happens upstream. So Kristen runs PRS, so she represents to me a product. My role is to try to contribute to the delivery strategy. So when we present to a Snowflake customer, we are 100% a Snowflake company. That is what we want to be, that is what we are, so that we want to lower the friction of adoption of the distribution channel a customer lives in. So we will be everywhere, and our goal is to be where the customer is. So the challenge for me is to ensure that the distribution function works for these use cases, but it also works for any number of other products we're building for Snowflake and for any other demand the customer makes. So I am not a professional PowerPoint person, so this works very well for me. And my diagrams use Excalidraw, so they're going to be very, very simplistic. So, okay, so the journey, thinking about it from sort of a pre-Snowflake world is, we're talking about Sybase. We're talking about something which we were talking earlier, maybe the 1980s. We can't quite get the date from when this product went live. But it's been around for a very long time, and as Kristen said, there are long lead times, 6, 8 months to onboard a customer, dedicated hardware, licenses, high TCO, high complexity. The reason serverless exists, basically, is to try to get away from things like this, the elasticity of the cloud, etc. These are the reasons that these warehouses exist. Also, that we want to be multi-tenant. We're just running like multiples of unit costs for every customer for many, many years, and it's region locked. So basically what we're saying here is every time we onboard a customer, we have to have another Sybase. We have all of this sync and lag and skew issues that will inevitably occur at all times, and we're just basically spending a lot of human capital all the time holding on to something. That said, it's a very successful business, so it's not something that we want to just turn off. It's something that we want to improve, and as we see traction in Snowflake, we're going to start to move towards that. So the first solution, so we've been doing this for a few products, and the first solution as we go into Snowflake to start with, we go through, I think we would call it a learning journey. So the objective is to share content. And at the moment, what we are doing is we're actually drawing from a Sybase instance ourselves. So we're kind of dogfooding the whole thing by being a customer of ourselves. We're using it so that we can guarantee we're going to get exactly the same data from the established channel. And we take from Sybase and we put it through into a primary in Snowflake. So in terms of the technology bingo, we are living in AWS in this case. We have on-prem Sybase. We then have a connection through some, in this case, a .NET container is running periodically to synchronize, extract from Sybase. It runs inits and incrementals based on deltas. There's a custom extractor which writes content to S3, and then we have a Lambda staging and load straight in, very vanilla loading into Snowflake. So this would be the first large white box in the diagram. So this is our primary, which is accruing data constantly on its schedule. And we tend to try to think of things as black boxes. So every release, in a sense, is an MVP which can be improved, but it obeys its interface. So it's definitely going to deliver the data. It's definitely going to be in sync, but it's going to be in sync within a period that Kristen wants to be faster. But we will get to that next in terms of improving, in terms of feature sets or performance or cost, so that we can actually get to market quicker. So we don't wait, or we're trying not to wait to make the perfect product. We're trying to use what we have to actually deliver and be able to make it available in Snowflake quickly. So we try to move fast. So the first pass was using secure direct shares. So on a per customer basis, as we go through our pre-existing onboarding model, once we get a call to action to onboard a customer, really what we're talking about here is interpreting a set of entitlements, which are like flags that say a customer can see this, they cannot see that, they can read this, they cannot read that. What that yields is, going through an entitlements engine, a bunch of SQL, a bunch of create or replace secure view statements wrapped in creating a share, wrapped in an appropriate schema, and you end up with something that is Snowflakey. And the customer doesn't see any of that. They just wake up in the morning, have a cup of coffee, hit refresh, and they will see, they will go through the onboarding of attaching the share, and now they have access to their database. And this works. Customers are very happy. And that's it. We start selling. We have multiples of customers using it. And the lesson we then took from there was we got demand, and we got demand outside of North America. We were trying to sell elsewhere, but part of our first pass was so just a little bit of engineering. So we had multiples of databases which were referring to each other. And this presented some issues with something called reference usage for replication. which meant that we had sort of inadvertently locked ourselves into North America. So we would call that learning a lesson in terms of how to actually use Snowflake. So then that means we have multiple shares, a share per customer. And we are happy insofar as we are like, yes or no, are we in fact selling to customers? Is it increasing on a quarter by quarter? Yes, it is. So this is in fact a success. And we now want to improve upon that. And at the same time, Snowflake in the back there are encouraging us to move to the newer, if you like, version 2 of sharing, which would be private listing. So what we want to do is we then want to make ourselves available in terms of for sale, cross-cloud, cross-region, anywhere. And parallel to this, it's a very large company, 26,000 people, we have other departments, if you like, not shadow IT departments, but running in parallel, solving in the same way, but in a point solution way instead of in a multi-cloud data distributions approach. And we discovered with other products that what they were doing was they were using secure direct shares, and then they were also using point solutions of replication to other regions where we as a company would then have to hold multiple units of infrastructure. So if we wanted to be in AP Southeast, we would have to go and inflate an account there and then set up a replication schedule. And when you let that roll for a couple of years, you find yourself inadvertently operating in over a dozen regions. And we look at it and we say, well, we're kind of in the same situation as before. We're now holding lots of infrastructure, even though it's ephemeral. It's still logically something we hold and we reason about and we're paying for. So we want to move to private listings, so we start our journey of adopting that. The reason for that is that what the private listing gives us, I appreciate a lot of people know this, is the ability to have a single physical copy, which when we onboard the customer, we can then use Snowflake as a SASE product, effectively with its magical checkbox saying, here is the account in a private listing. It will then handle the replication using the feature cross-cloud auto-fulfillment. So we can, in fact, then say, we can elect to be in AP Southeast, we can elect to be in Amazon, we can elect to be in any region and cloud that Snowflake operate in. And we take that from a 6 to 8 month onboarding schedule to technically you're talking about a 6 to 8 minute onboarding schedule, but we still have due diligence on customers. So up to the moment of execution, there's a period that we'll work on, which is a more labor intensive sort of human process. But what Snowflake have done is they've removed that impediment to actually onboarding and accessing the data, so that we really could have a conversation on the phone and begin the onboarding process. And if it were a reasonably long conversation, you would have access to the data by the time we said, thanks very much, goodbye. And so that really does bring it down. So in a sense, it's hugely over-engineered in terms of our customer expectations. Even though they may say, I want access today, the customers are not going to access the data on the same day, but we want to be so far ahead in terms of our data availability, our ability to be in a given market. And what I need to do is I need to make sure Kristen can sell her product, but actually Kristen to me is one product. I'm responsible for the ability to sell our products plural using standard access patterns, standard onboarding patterns. So the things that aren't in these diagrams are the entitlements engine, the content delivery engine, the observability and telemetry, which is not written for Datascope Warehouse as such, but is written to enable us to say yes to the next product and the next product and the next product. And all of those products will basically use a consistent low friction experience, which is snowflakey. So it's, if you know the onboarding process of a private listing, there is a listing, it says the listing for your company name for the product. You click the get button and you now have access to the data. And that's the end of the conversation. You now have the content. So that's a big success. And so we did the first pass of Secure Direct Shares. That was launched back in October. And then we just recently, about 8 weeks ago, we launched private listings. So we can now, it makes it sort of for an unusually short conversation with product where we're just saying yes. So you can have it yes. There isn't an impediment. There isn't a roadmap where we will be in Brazil, it would just be there. It becomes a business decision, do we want to be there or not? And then when we say yes, we are, the moment the customer wants it. So what we have moved to is a hub and spoke model. We have a primary in which the data resides, and using private listings cross-cloud auto-fulfillment, meaning it replicates for me. I don't have any nerds having to worry about syncing. What I have is like a bunch of, that's a compliment. I have a bunch of engineers who are worrying about making sure they've got a reasonable CI/CD framework to be able to release a new feature, to upgrade for our private listings, for example, to organizational private listings. That this is no longer like a major thing. This is more of a incremental feature rollout on Snowflake. Okay, so now it's opened up our TAM, so our available market has grown to the globe, and I can sort of move on to the next problem, whatever that might be, which will be some other product. Just a quick explanation, I'm not sure if I covered it. So when we talk about the customer accessing the data, so if we sort of take the regionality out for a moment and just think logically there is one physical copy, then what the customer is actually getting is a schema. If you think about the topology within Snowflake, there is a database, and it will be called product X. And in that database, there will be schemas containing tables according to the topology of the product in question. There, in the case of Datascope Warehouse, almost 2,000 tables across a whole myriad of schemas that make sense to the domain, to the subject matter expert of the product Datascope Warehouse. And that sits within a set of schemas, and we're still trying to work out the sort of terminology for it, but they're like data schemas, if you like. So they contain the physical data. And then you have sibling schemas, and they would be customer schemas. So it's a little bit interesting when you look in terms of your sort of experience of like the cosmetic experience of looking at the layout of your database, where you have this classification of data schemas, definitely containing data, and you can say this how much is in here, how much is this costing me in storage, whatever. And then next to it will be a sibling schema, which is on a per customer basis. So you then have a name it, you sort of have to conjure these like emerging patterns of you have a naming convention to represent a customer into which you then create secure views that point to the data schemas. And the reason for that is so that you completely avoid, this is the lesson learned, please don't do this until the feature turns up, cross reference usage, referring to a different database, thinking of one as a master or primary data database and then a customer database. This is fine until you want to sell globally and you want to have replication using private listings currently. So where you have maybe, if I think about tech history actually, then there are like 13,000, I'm actually talking about BigQuery in this case, 13,000 data sets. So there would be 13,000 schemas within Snowflake representing the structure, the topology of the data. Next to that will be the customers. And so you end up with one database, which is for the product, a whole suite of data schemas, and then as you grow with customers, you will have sort of n additional schemas for the customer. And I know it's a bit of a dry topic, but ultimately what the customer then perceives on their side is a database called customer LSEG product name, and we are sort of settle on what it is that they want. And then they will have their schemas in there that will be predictable to them. And that allows us on our side, and the predictability is the very important thing, to then start doing things about observability, understanding just in terms of grepping reports, which one is hot, what is being used, if a customer is using it or not, when the last time a share was accessed, to understand if a customer is actually making use of it. And this is all, what I'm saying there is, it's all theoretical. Like it's true in terms of our engineering is done, but we're not yet making use of these features. So that's quite interesting. And then, okay. Yeah, so actually really this is just what I was saying. But this is about sort of moving forward. So what have I done so far? I've said we were on Sybase. We actually are still on Sybase because it's our upstream currently, and we will repoint at some point to be sort of faster with CDC going into Snowflake. But what we now have with listings enabled is we now have global reach, so we can go anywhere, we can go cross-cloud. when you do go cross-cloud, currently, that means you incur like the book price egress cost of going from Azure to AWS or from wherever your primary is crossing over. So you basically pay multiples of logical costs for your egress that you want to avoid. So the solution to that, or the thing we're going to adopt shortly, is Egress Cost Optimizer. And that will be where we take our data, once we go through our own internal governance and approvals to make use of, we'll be using Egress Cost Optimizer, where we will write once to Snowflake's store, which has to be R2, but it writes to R2 and is then egressing to any of the accounts that the customers are using. And we will see our costs actually go down and, well, flatten, and then as we grow in success, as we migrate customers from our DSOS solution, we will have a predictable cost path, and that's very, very, very important to us. So next steps, Egress Cost Optimizer. We're also rolling out a feature that's been a long time coming, change tracking. And actually, if I just quickly talk about that, because we're almost done. There were some things about change tracking we had not anticipated, and this is where there are some areas where you cannot have change tracking if the content, the view you're creating, has a certain style of joins. So we've had to start reworking some of our views using CTEs. So you just have to, I would say, you have to look at what you're doing. If you know you want change tracking, you have to look at your composition of your views as you're working to factor in so that you actually will be able to turn on change tracking. And we're rolling out more content. Previously, things like rolling out more content would be considered to be a production release where we actually have to think about a sort of version 2 and a version 3. But we've improved our ingestion pipeline. This is also actually just interesting to me. We've improved our ingestion pipeline such that this will just appear as more data as subject to a customer actually purchasing it without us having to worry about like a blue-green deployment of deploying something separately and then turning it on. Thank you very much.